The Attorney General's report, now this new investigation, a criminal investigation, is all why the New York State Assembly and the Democratic majorities need to move forward with articles of impeachment. There is no reason to wait any longer. We have enough evidence. We have enough reason to move forward and remove this governor because he doesn't seem equipped to do the right thing and resign himself.
So that's New York State Assembly Minority Senate Leader Robert Ortt. He was speaking earlier on Fox News Live. As embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo digs in, he's refusing to step down in the face of intense pressure to resign, even from members of his own party, including governors, members of Congress, and the president himself. The Albany County Sheriff today saying the first known criminal complaint against Cuomo filed by an aide who says he groped her could lead to his arrest. Joining us now is Kevin Byrne, a Republican member of the New York State Assembly. And as you probably heard earlier, the press conference, Sheriff Craig Apple said that, of course, as you know, his office is in charge of investigating this criminal complaint against the governor. He says that there's a lot of fact-finding to do, and they won't rush or delay the process because it involves the governor. And he also added that if an official charge is filed, it would likely be a misdemeanor. So now, I'm not asking you, of course, to litigate the case here or predict the past of this criminal conduct complaint. However, what is your stance on that?
Well, thank you again for having me here, Arthel, to talk about this very important issue. I would say it's important and it's good that law enforcement and the district attorneys in the counties where many of these very disturbing allegations have taken place, they are taking this seriously. The Westchester County District Attorney, I represent Westchester in the Assembly as well. They're doing their own investigation. The Albany County District Attorney is doing an investigation. And I think it's important that these victims who were wronged are able to find peace and justice. The governor gets his due process. I think it's important for people to know that this criminal investigation and those criminal proceedings, they should be running now concurrently with what we're doing in the legislature, which is fighting for impeachment. A lot of my colleagues in the Assembly majority and the Senate for the past several months, they were calling for the governor to resign. That didn't go anywhere. So calling for the governor to resign is not going to do anything. He's the only one with the power to resign. As an elected member of the Assembly, I have the power to impeach. And I think it's time that my colleagues in the Assembly, we exercise that power and we remove this governor.
And the governor is still fighting till the bitter end. And yesterday, one of his attorneys held a lengthy virtual press conference. Let me play a clip from that for you.
For the majority of the witnesses that were interviewed, they were not transcribed. This would become, if you accept this report as is, without giving him the evidence, I tell you that is an irresponsible and a new standard for impeachment.
Also said that she feels that the investigation by the Attorney General's office is tainted by politics. What's your reaction?
You know, I think that was predictable. We knew that the governor's office was going to respond that way. When I did hear the president of the United States say he should resign and the top Democrat Party chair say he should resign, for a moment, I thought the governor might have the common decency to actually think this through and do the right thing for the state and resign. His pre-recorded response and then the defense from his lawyers yesterday, which was broadcast on the governor's website, that showed that he is going to be completely defiant, and it shows a little bit about his strategy. He's going to victim shame. I think they misrepresented some of the facts themselves. I think the Attorney General's office rightfully responded to some of those accusations. And here's the other thing, too. With impeachment, specifically the powers to remove a governor, that in itself includes a portion of due process, right? If the governor wants to tell his side of the case too, he's going to be able to do that in a trial in the Senate. And as far as the criminal proceedings, that can still happen concurrently, like I said earlier. A lot of the comments the lawyers made were directed at some of the less egregious allegations in the AG's report, which they provided a mountain of evidence in that report. I read it, and for them to try to dismiss that I think that's irresponsible. But the really big important things, like also like the trooper, they barely even talked about that. And I think they were unprepared to talk about that.
Yeah, that was definitely glaring. That stood out to me as well while watching that news conference yesterday. So listen, a Quinnipiac poll released yesterday, in fact, shows that 70% of New Yorkers want Governor Cuomo to resign. And as you just discussed, the governor doesn't seem to be on that same page at this point. But how much time does the governor have to continue defying these calls for his resignation before he actually is called to the Senate there in New York, the Senate floor, to testify, as you said, before trial? Do you think it'll get to that in an impeachment trial?
I think it could. I think more with every day he's defiant. I think it's getting to a point where the Assembly Speaker and some of our top elected Democrat officials, they are losing credibility by the minute when they say resign, and then they do nothing and let this man exercise his powers. I mean, he even declared a disaster for gun violence, a couple of weeks ago. That's an extreme amount of power as a governor, and he still has that power today. He's shown that he's willing to intimidate lawmakers like my friend and colleague Ron Kim. So we shouldn't delay this a moment further. We should move right now. But if he doesn't, I think the Assembly majority is going to be compelled to act. I'm certainly doing everything in my power to compel them to act.
How quickly?
How quickly? They put a deadline for him to respond with evidence by the end of next Friday. My belief is they should immediately schedule us to consider a vote on impeachment. I would be comfortable doing it today. I was comfortable doing it 5 months ago. But ultimately, sadly, we're outnumbered in the New York State legislature. The Speaker has a tremendous amount of power. We need to push him. We need to convince him. And I'm hopeful that we can get this done within the next 6 weeks, before the end of the month. But I want to get it done now. And just one more point, Arthel, before I lose you. Impeachment is important because as disgusting and as offensive as some of these allegations are that were found in the Attorney General's report, there's a lot of other things that the impeachment investigation from the Assembly looked at. The COVID-19 cover-up, the Tappan Zee Bridge, all those things, even the vaccine czar, Larry Schwartz, using his
bottom
power
line, Assemblyman, Byrne,
Yes.
before we go, and I get your point. There's definitely a lot of, wrong arrows, if you will, pointed at the governor. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he can work himself out of this conundrum that he finds himself in or not. New York State Assemblyman Kevin Byrne, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll have you back on as this story continues.